Traditional media is all but dead. Streaming services definitely offer something that these traditional services don't seem to be able to offer. Now, that doesn't mean that streaming services are perfect. And I'll say right out the gate, me mentioning Apple TV Plus, because that's what I'm going to talk about today, is not a blanket endorsement of everything Apple does or everything they have on Apple TV Plus streaming. It's not all good. It's not all things that you want your children to watch. It's not all wholesome. It's a shame that has to be said, but I wanted to say that because nowadays people think if you mention anything positive about a thing, a streaming service, a person, that automatically means you endorse every single aspect of this thing and or this person. So I just wanted to make that known right out the gate. But I will say Apple TV Plus, in my humble opinion, has been knocking it out of the park. Some of their shows, the ones that I have taken interest in, have been great. I am a fan of sci-fi myself. Sometimes I can do drama. It just depends on the show, but I particularly prefer sci-fi. That's my bread and butter when it comes to entertainment. Part of that is due to maybe how I grew up. For me, sci-fi was always an escape from the normal. I never liked horror flicks. I didn't really get into mobster movies per se. Some of the movies that depicted life in the hood, I enjoyed some of them, but they weren't my favorites because it was like I'm seeing the very thing I'm trying to escape with entertainment. It's not what I want to see. I don't want to see more hood when I go to watch a TV show or a movie. I want to see sci-fi. I want to see dragons being slayed. I want to see kingdoms and things that just spark imagination. And I think that's one of the reasons why I got into comic books. But as I said, Apple TV Plus has been knocking it out of the park. And there's something coming to Apple TV Plus that I knew absolutely, positively nothing about. I have no idea how this slipped under the radar, how it got past me, but it did. And I want to talk about this. This is an article from Bounding Into Comics. It was written by J.B. Augustine, and it is about this MonsterVerse TV series. Now, again, I knew nothing about this. This caught me by surprise. It says Godzilla, quote, a big part, end quote, of Apple TV's MonsterVerse series that is set to introduce new Titans and overlap with Adam Wingard's helmed film. So you may have wondered what is going on with the MonsterVerse TV series from Legendary that is coming to Apple TV Plus, as there hasn't been much lately talked about on that front. Well, with the series ready to hit streaming, there are exciting updates to report, and they come directly from showrunner and writer Matt Shakman. During an interview with Collider, the former WandaVision string puller teased the MonsterVerse show will have visual effects like its cinematic brethren, and Godzilla will show up in perhaps a large enough capacity to brag about. Godzilla has a very important role to play, and how he factors into the series is a big part of it, Shakman said. Now, again, I didn't know anything about this. I just happened to come across this article while browsing through Bounding Into Comics. And as soon as I saw this, I thought to myself, yo, this is exciting. I was born in 79. I'm an 80s baby. I grew up watching Kung Fu flicks and a lot of these big Titan monster series. Godzilla was definitely a big part of my childhood. And I think many people from my era watched a lot of Kung Fu flicks in a lot of monster films, and Godzilla was definitely a part of that spectrum of the things we watch. So I'm excited. I like the new Godzilla films. There's people that didn't like them. I understand. Movies have the people who love them, and they have people who just hate them no matter what. People had criticisms. I enjoyed them. I thought they were pretty dope. And this coming to Apple TV Plus, yo, I would like to know what the budget is for Apple TV Plus, because these dudes are killing it. He says on the budget for visual effects, he added, you always run out of money eventually. Even if it's Harry Potter or Star Wars, Star Trek, Godzilla, you run out of money. But it is less about carrying out shots, although eventually you have to do that, and more just about storytelling and how much Godzilla was going to factor into the story was a consideration. And that's good. I like the fact that right out the gate, he's already saying, yo, yeah, we want to get all of these visual effects. We want all of these things in there, but we want you to have a good storyline. It is good to see creators that understand, bro, just give me a good story. If your visual effects are decent, even if they're not on par with your competitors, if your story is better, you're going to bring me back. Eventually, the visual effects will get better if you get more viewers and make more money. And I think storylines personally will bring more viewers. He wasn't the only one, however, as Shackman further added, he's not the only Titan that you're going to meet along the way. In other words, expect some VFX heavy shots. So there's visual effects conversation constantly happening, in that the only question left is what Titans viewers can hope will emerge. Toho could provide some, or Legendary may create whole new ones. That would be interesting too. I think sometimes we get so caught up in recreating things from the early 80s, late 70s, early 80s, and maybe even the early 90s, that we lose focus on creating new IP. And I think that's what needs to happen. I wanted to show you something. If you're not an Apple person, I understand. I have Apple TV Plus, and I'm going to point out some shows that are, in my opinion, probably sleeper hits. One is For All Mankind. Now, this show right here, For All Mankind, is a show about the space race, but it's an alternative history space race show. So it starts, I want to say, after the Korean War. It goes into the moon landing and all of that, the space race, and it goes beyond that, brings it to the, to the present, and things that are being done. I'm trying not to give too much away if you haven't seen it, but For All Mankind is probably, what's funny is it's sci-fi in the sense that it is covering something that happened while embellishing and adding in things that didn't happen. But it's not traditional sci-fi, if you know what I mean. But it is a very compelling show with great acting and great storytelling. Foundation. Now, I'm not sure if this is based on a book. I would not be surprised if it is. Some of you might actually know. What I will say is this show, from the very first episode, pulled me in, and I was hooked. I was like, oh, I'm in. I'm watching it. This other one over here, Invasion, yet another one. The Invasion is one of those shows where you see the show, you start watching it, and the things that are happening and how it's pulling you in, and how they deal with some of the character development, when I saw this, and this came on the heels of watching Foundation. I want to say Foundation and Invasion aired in the same month, if I'm not mistaken. I saw this and I thought to myself, oh, Apple is coming for the jugular. Now, we know Apple is a very lucrative company. They have a lot of money and they probably have more money to throw at these shows than most people have. But these shows are nothing to shake a stick at. These are very good shows. Finding out about this MonsterVerse show, looking at these other shows that Apple has in a lineup. The only thing I don't like about the streaming wars, if you want to call it that, is there's so many different streaming services with shows that I like to watch that it pulls you in several different directions and you have to decide which ones you're going to pay for. The good thing about it is when let's say you have a streaming service and there's a show you like, that show's about to air, you can pay for that streaming service for that month if they post all of the episodes at once, or just until that show is done, cancel your subscription. It's not like cable used to be where you were locked in for a certain length of time. There were certain cable services that didn't do that, but most of it you were locked in for a certain, a certain amount of time. Streaming services kind of give you more control. And the thing is, you can watch what you want to watch when you want to watch it. You're not stuck to a certain schedule. And this is where traditional cable, even if you're using a DVR, even that, streaming services still just have the drop on traditional cable. And I don't know that's going to be reversed. But I will say this, Apple TV Plus, I don't think they're the most lucrative streaming service right now. I don't know exactly who's on top. I didn't look that up. But yo, Apple TV, if they keep it up with the things they've been putting out, they are putting out some quality content. And I think they probably have a lot of these other streaming services real nervous right now.